We are anonymous, the watchers in the digital shadows, the ones who expose what others hide, the voices that refuse to be silenced. For years, we have tracked the chaos unleashed by Donald Trump and the political storm orbiting him. But what just happened in Washington may be one of the biggest reversals of power we have seen yet. The Supreme Court of the United States, yes, the same one stacked with Trump's own appointees, just delivered a devastating blow to his most loyal allies in Congress, and it is tearing the Republican Party apart from the inside. Let us be clear. Before Donald J. Trump, America had never seen anything like this. Never before had a president been impeached twice in a single term. Never before had so many members of his own party voted to convict him and remove him from office. Never before had a president rejected the results of an election that legally removed him. Never before had a president summoned his followers to a violent insurrection at the U.S. Capitol to try to stop the peaceful transfer of power. And never before had a president been accused of tearing up government documents, while his own chief of staff reportedly burned others in a White House fireplace. That is the legacy of Donald Trump. And now, even the Supreme Court is saying enough. Within the last 48 hours, something historic happened. The highest court in America released a rare public statement, a direct rebuke to MAGA lawmakers who have been interfering in Trump's legal cases. When the Supreme Court speaks publicly like this, it is not routine. It means something serious has gone down. Their message was crystal clear. Republican members of Congress are crossing the line. They called it unprecedented interference. That is their phrase. Unprecedented. The justices warned these lawmakers, the very people who were supposed to make laws, not twist them, that they were threatening the independence of the judicial branch. And they did it publicly for the whole country to see. Now imagine that. The Supreme Court, with 3 justices appointed by Trump himself, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, is now calling out Trump's most loyal soldiers in Congress. People like Marjorie Taylor, Green Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, and the Freedom Caucus hardliners, who have turned Congress into a shield for Trump's legal troubles. And they are furious. Marjorie Taylor Greene jumped on social media almost instantly, posting, "The Supreme Court just showed its true colors. The MAGA movement will not be silenced." Hours later, protests erupted outside the Capitol. Chants of "Save Trump, impeach the court" echoed through the streets. Let that sink in. They are calling to impeach Supreme Court justices. Trump's supporters, furious at the very institution their leader helped shape. Over 800,000 posts under the hashtag MAGA Revolt flooded social media within a single day. That is not noise. That is a full-scale rebellion. And this rebellion is aimed at the Supreme Court of the United States. So why did this happen? Why would the Supreme Court, including Trump's own nominees, issue a statement like this? Because behind the scenes, Trump's allies in Congress have been meddling in his criminal and civil cases, not just by making speeches or holding hearings, but by actively trying to influence the courts. According to reports from the Washington Post and Reuters, several pro-Trump members of Congress have filed amicus briefs, documents intended to sway the courts in Trump's favor. Normally, advocacy groups file those, not sitting lawmakers with the power to pass legislation. It is one thing to express political support. It is another to use congressional authority to manipulate ongoing cases. That is the line they crossed. Even more disturbing, multiple sources say some of these lawmakers have been coordinating directly with Trump's legal team, discussing strategy, proposing bills that could benefit at his defense, and even threatening to investigate judges and prosecutors who rule against Trump. That is not oversight, that is intimidation. The Supreme Court finally said enough. Their statement basically told Congress, "Stay in your lane. You are the legislative branch. We are the judiciary, and there are boundaries you cannot cross." But MAGA does not care about boundaries anymore. They care about loyalty, and only loyalty to Trump. If you are not helping him, you are the enemy. Even if you are a Supreme Court justice, appointed by him. This is the movement that calls itself patriotic, but is now turning on the very system it claims to defend. They have attacked the FBI, the Justice Department, and now the highest court in the land. They are not just challenging rulings. They are challenging the foundation of democracy itself. And here is the dark irony. Trump's strategy of making his legal problems political, turning courtrooms into campaign stages, is now backfiring. The Supreme Court's message was as much to him as to his allies. You cannot turn justice into politics, but Trump's world is built on defiance. His allies are not backing down. They are doubling down. Marjorie Taylor, Green Matt Gaetz, and others are fundraising off this outrage, telling their followers that traitors on the court have betrayed Trump. Jim Jordan is already pushing for hearings about so-called judicial bias. They are trying to turn this rebuke into fuel for their next fight. This is chaos by design. Trump has always thrived on conflict, on turning institutions against each other, on making his followers feel like they are the only ones who truly see the truth. Now that same chaos is consuming his own movement. Inside the Republican Party, quiet panic is spreading. Traditional conservatives, the ones who still believe in the Constitution, who respect judicial independence, are horrified by the attacks on the Supreme Court. They see this as a breaking point. But most of them are staying silent, afraid of the MAGA base, afraid of losing their seats. The few who speak up are branded as traitors. This is how authoritarian movements eat their own. Let us not forget the Supreme Court did not just make a political statement. It made a constitutional one. It reminded Congress that there is a separation of powers for a reason. Once lawmakers start interfering with court cases, the entire idea of fair justice collapses. If Congress can pressure judges, then no case is safe. Not Trump's, not yours, not anyone's. What makes this moment historic is not just the fight itself, but who is involved in it. The same president who once bragged about shaping the Supreme Court is now watching his own creation turn against his allies. It is poetic justice, and it signals a larger shift inside America's conservative power structure. You can see the fractures forming in real time. There is the MAGA wing, loud, angry, defiant, and then the institutional conservatives who still cling to rules and process. For years, the two factions have coexisted uneasily. But this Supreme Court confrontation may be the final rupture, because MAGA does not believe in limits. They believe in Trump. And if Trump says the court is wrong, then the court is wrong, no matter what the Constitution says. Meanwhile, the protests continue. Footage from Washington shows hundreds of demonstrators outside the Capitol with banners reading, "The court works for us," and "Impeach the traitor justices." CNN and Reuters both confirmed that the chant, "Save Trump, impeach the court," dominated the rallies. Think about that. Protesters calling to impeach justices simply for following the law. That is not democracy. That is mob rule disguised as patriotism, and it is spreading online like wildfire. Influencers in MAGA circles are calling for boycotts of Supreme Court rulings, some even suggesting the creation of people's tribunals to overrule court decisions they do not like. That is how radicalized this movement has become. They have convinced themselves that loyalty to Trump is loyalty to the nation, and anything that challenges him must be destroyed. But here's the thing about the Supreme Court. It does not bend easily. These are lifetime appointees. They do not answer to voters, donors, or mobs. If anything, the backlash from MAGA may only harden their resolve to prove they cannot be intimidated, which means Trump's legal future just got a lot darker. Remember, his legal strategy depends on pressure, political noise, public outrage, and the illusion of persecution. If the courts refuse to bow to that pressure, he is left with the law itself. And the law is not on his side. Multiple criminal indictments, civil penalties, and ongoing investigations are closing in from every direction. And this Supreme Court statement just made it clear. Congress cannot save him. Inside Trump's orbit, panic is growing. Former aides and legal analysts are warning that his allies' aggressive tactics are backfiring. Even conservative commentators are starting to whisper that the MAGA strategy may have crossed a line too far. But Trump's base does not care. They see betrayal everywhere except within. The truth is, this is not just about Trump anymore. It is about what kind of country America will be. Do laws still apply equally to everyone, or only to those with enough political power to bend them? Do institutions exist to serve justice, or to serve one man's ego? Right now, that question is being tested in real time, and the answer will define the next decade of American politics. The collapse of institutional trust did not start with this case. It has been eroding for years. People no longer trust Congress, the FBI, or the media, and now they are turning on the last branch left, the judiciary. When that happens, democracy itself teeters, because once the courts fall, there is nothing left to hold power accountable. The Supreme Court just drew a line, but MAGA does not believe in lines. They believe in battle, so expect this to get worse before it gets better. More protests, more chaos, more politicians choosing sides. Traditional Republicans may try to calm the fire, but they have lost control of the movement they helped create. Trump built MAGA on rage, and rage is not something you can contain. It burns everything, including the hands that lit it. This is not just another news cycle. This is a turning point, a Supreme Court rebuke. This public, this direct, this explosive, it changes the landscape. It exposes how fragile the system has become and how dangerous blind loyalty can be when it replaces the rule of law. Donald Trump once said he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose a single supporter. But now the fight is not on Fifth Avenue. It is on Capitol Hill, and it is between his own movement and the Constitution itself. We are anonymous. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we will keep watching, because truth has no party, justice has no side, and no one, not even a president, not even a Supreme Court, stacked with his judges, is above the law.